I haven't been a startup in 21 years. So my company's old enough to drink, I think, in the States now. So we can go to Vegas. We wanted to do commercials, but then also we wanted to do whatever anyone would pay us to do because we were starving in our early 20s. Running a startup is great, but how are you going to survive the economic ups and downs? We reacted to the marketplace.
Ted, you know what I love about you? You've gone through 3 crises and you've literally reinvented your business 3 times. I think the best way you said it was you just got to learn to take punches in the face because it's nonstop.
Yeah, it is nonstop.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Founders Korner. In today's episode, I have a very special guest for you, Ted Lau from Ballistic Arts. He himself is a startup, and I brought him on to this podcast strictly because his vast experience and insight in the startup world, and specifically in the marketing and all his frustrations that he went through. And trust me, it's all the same no matter what. So let's all welcome him. Ted, how are you?
I'm well, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me.
I think you're going to have a lot of actual fun insights because when you and I talk, we kind of don't stop. And just before we started this whole podcast, we were just talking and we're like, whoa. Let's save it for the podcast. So how are you?
I'm great. Yeah, no,
Good.
It's a beautiful day here in Vancouver, sunny Vancouver.
Nice.
Had a good time. Actually, I was just telling you in the pre-call, I was hanging out with a bunch of entrepreneurs, a part of the EO chapter in Vancouver, and just talking about the pains and the fun of running your own show.
We didn't talk about exes or ex-partners or anything like that, did we?
No, we didn't talk about that. Well, we can get into that. We can get into that.
Okay, we will. All right. So, Ted, why don't you give us your history? Like, what made you start your own startup? You know, where are you? Where are you now? Where were you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so, I mean, the intro, very kind intro. And while, yes, every business, when you start up, you're a startup.
Yep.
I haven't been a startup in 21 years. So I started it in the room. Thank you. It's been 21 years and a month or something like that. So my company's old enough to drink, I think, in the States now. So we can go to Vegas. So yeah, Ballistic Arts is my company. I started in the room above my parents' garage back in 2002, right after 9/11. Like it was like a few months after 9/11 happened. I had just finished university at Simon Fraser. I did a communications degree, and I wanted to get into film. I wanted to get into Hollywood North, and well, 9/11 happened, and all the shoots kind of got shut down. And so I'm like, oh, well, I got to make some money. Like I got to pay some bills.
Yeah.
And so I just started freelancing, and then one thing led to another. I met a dude who him and I got along really, really well at the time, and he became my business partner. There was actually 2 other people, so me, him, and another person, but that person left within like 12 months, and then we kind of grew it from there. So we started as a video production company.
Okay.
The problem was back
specifically with like commercials.
We wanted to do commercials, but then also we wanted to do whatever anyone would pay us to do because we were starving in our early 20s.
That's fair.
And so, but you got to remember, back in the day, this was like DVDs, VHS tapes. Yeah. And so we had no network in our 20s, knew nobody. And so we're knocking on doors using the yellow pages, like calling like the phone book, just like, wow, hey, do you need a video? Yeah, literally like.
You're the OG of cold calling.
Dude, cold calling, door knocking, all that shit I did.
Wow.
I'm allowed to swear. And so,
yeah.
And so we just, that's what I did. And we had lots of clients that go, hey, you know what? Love your brochure. We don't need a video right now. Love the advertising, and thanks for calling. But like, I don't even have a TV in my little mom pa, restaurant, insert law firm, whatever it is, account agency. But then they'd be like, well, you got some nice advertising. Can you help me with my menu designs, with my brochure, and again, in my 20s, it was like,
you pay me, I'll do it.
Like it was like literally, and they'd be like, how much? And I literally would quote in just out of the air, just like, this is how much. like it was like, okay. And then we did it. And then one thing led to another, and they're like, well, we still don't need video, but these web things on the interweb.
That's right. Because web was just blowing up back then. That's right.
Web was just blowing up, and it was like, hey, I need, like HTML,
Yeah.
hard coded HTML. Okay. This is like 5-page website.
Yep.
And it was like, hey, notice that you built your own website. It looks pretty nice. I think I need one. Can you help
Yeah.
me? And it was like, we're a video production company, but okay. Like,
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
you. Yeah. Anything that you need, sir, ma'am. And that was it. That's kind of how we got rolling, I guess.
It's the hustle, right? Like you have to
It's,
make ends meet to survive.
it's
Like
the hustle.
it's amazing how like some people don't get that. Like they're just like sitting there going, no, it has to be the thing I start at. Well, no, just focus on what you're good at and see what the customers are telling you. Listen to them.
Yeah. It's the marketplace. If you think
Yeah,
about it, like, Netflix started as a DVD company and now
that's
they
right.
are not that, right? So like
That's right.
every company will pivot and it's path of least resistance, what the marketplace is going to tell you. And for us, I guess that's the first lesson talking to startups. It's like, well, great, but that you're doing this and you're super talented. Everyone that's starting up probably has a really great idea. And how do you react to the marketplace? So
That's
we
right.
reacted to the marketplace. Our first real industry that we started, I guess, going in as a niche was junior mining companies. A lot of junior mining companies
Yeah,
back in the day, in the finance district in Vancouver, all these guys needed branding, websites, videos, corporate,
right.
investor relations, and then the recession happened. And so another thing is running a startup is great, but how are you going to survive the economic ups and downs? So the
Right.
recession happened. That industry went the way of the dodo. It's still it's recovered, but it's not the way it was. Like I remember when I was first starting, these guys were they were raising so much money. I had one guy
Yeah.
call me. He was like, hey, I need all this stuff, like all my branding, website, da 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 da. I need it in 2 weeks. And I'm like,
Just
there's no way that's going to happen. And the guy, no joke, pulled
wrote
out
a
his
blank
checkbook
check.
and he just looked at me and said, how much? Right? He literally said, like, I'm like, is this actually happening? I was in a restaurant and I was like,
Did
okay.
you
And
kind of feel like I don't know how you feel, but like whenever that happens to me, I almost feel like like I don't know, like I'm gonna say what it is. I feel like a slut. Like I'm just
oh,
like,
really?
yeah,
No,
if
I
you
felt
pay
like a
me enough,
hitman.
I'll
It's like a
do anything
hitman.
you
No,
tell me to do.
look, like a hitman, not a prostitute, a hitman. You gotta go gangster, man. So it was like, I remember thinking in my head, okay, well, I'm gonna double how much I'm gonna charge.
Yeah,
And I'll tell you, man, it
that's right.
wasn't
You
enough.
have to.
It still
Yeah,
wasn't
no.
enough. It still wasn't enough. So we did that for a while. And then we again pivoted. We got into real estate development marketing. So a lot
Okay.
of high rises and buildings. Actually, our first project was actually in Calgary, but we actually started doing real estate marketing for a decade. We got into health care, like all the provincial
Okay.
health authorities,
Yep.
and then a lot of professional services. And then, I got in, me and my partner were good for a number of years. And then after around our 15th anniversary, the seams started breaking and things were just, the communication wasn't good anymore. It was kind of like the marriage, that's
Yeah.
gone the way of the, I don't know. It didn't go well is
Right.
all I can say. And so at that point I wanted to reinvent the business. So we actually, funny enough, have an existing business. And then we started a startup, a new department
Right.
that helps established B2B companies get sales leads through digital marketing. So not just
Right.
getting you thumbs up, not getting you likes, not getting you followers and things like that. It's like, how do I get you qualified leads as a B2B company so that you can actually close deals? And we'll do everything that we've done, all the creative services, graphic design, websites, video. But then I put on my business mind, my kind of biz dev hat, going, okay, well,
Yeah.
if if a client's going to come and invest X amount of dollars a month with us, they darn well better see a return. And so we got to
Yeah.
reverse engineer and figure that out. And we found a really good niche. And then COVID happened, which at the end of the day wasn't so bad for that startup department because
So
all my existing clients, like all my existing projects went like
yeah.
nobody wanted to do anything. But then all of a sudden everyone's like, wait a minute, you can get me leads, you can get me business and keep my doors open. I got a bunch of government money. And so
Right.
that spurred the growth of this department. And now that department is almost, I think almost 70% of the business now. We
So
still provide all the creative services, but all in service of these digital marketing lead gen campaigns.
Ted, you know what I love about you? You've gone through 3 crises and you've literally reinvented your business 3 times now.
Oh, at least I thought about that. I actually have a post on my a blog post on my website about how I remember going to high school
Yeah.
and they would put you into these career placement things. And I remember
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
lady
Yeah.
that was saying, "Oh, you know what? Gone are the days that you're going to work for the same company for 25 years. You're going to switch careers at least 7 times." I remember thinking, like, 7 times? Are you
That's a
nuts? Like
lot.
that's a lot, right? But in retrospect, in the 21 years I've had the business, I've at least changed and pivoted the company 7 times, different industries, different service offerings.
Yeah.
We're now servicing from here all the way down to San Diego. I try to keep PST because it's a lifestyle business and I'm, lazy a bit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. We have clients all over, but like mostly West Coast US. So it's continued to grow. And that's the beauty of running a business is the freedom that you get. Now it's there's pros and cons. The freedom is you can do whatever you want.
Right.
The negative is you can do whatever you want. And so sometimes you don't have a lot of the guidance and there's a lot of trailblazing that has to be done. And sometimes I have no idea if what I'm doing is correct until hindsight being 2020.
Yeah. No, and that's the biggest thing is right is you're constantly adapting to the market based on what your customers are telling you. And you're right, like being in business for 20 years, you do not it's very rare for a business to stay the same for 20 years. Like it's
100%.
it's constantly adapting. And if you don't adapt, you die. Blockbuster best example since you brought up Netflix.
Well,
Right?
it's true. And
They
you know
didn't
what?
adapt.
And funny enough, like this new, I guess, business, it's been 4.5, 5 years now, this new division, which is a majority of the company now. It started because I was going through that breakup with my partner. I didn't know what the heck I
Mhm.
was going to do. There was not a lot of direction in the company. I was just trying to survive. I'm having lunch, beers, coffee with
Yeah.
some of my trusted clients.
Yeah.
And I'm asking them, I literally asked them, like, "Hey, look,
What do you
I'm
need?
reinventing the business. What do you need?" And every single one of them said, "I want you to do social media marketing." And I'm like, "Oh my
And
God,
that makes sense
I
because five
hate
years
social
ago,
media."
yeah, that 5 years ago though, that's where it was popping. The whole
It was
social media.
popping
Yeah.
and people kept asking, but I was like, I hate
Social
it. Why? Like, I'm not on Insta. I'm not on like me personally.
Yeah.
I don't really like it. But they were saying, look, I'm paying these companies all these dollars a month,
Yeah.
thousands of dollars a month, and I'm not seeing a return. And in my head, I hear thousands of
Of
dollars a
dollars.
month, right? And I'm like, well, hold on.
I can do it.
You're paying thousands of dollars a month, and you're not seeing any kind of return.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. And out of just my and so that's another thing that I've learned is sometimes I have to be responsible for what comes out of my mouth because I tend to manifest destiny fairly easily with my
Yeah.
words. And so I'm like, okay, well, what if I got you leads? I literally, I was like, what if I just, I pivoted, I got you leads instead. And
Yeah.
I had this one client who's like, Ted, if you do that, I'll never leave you. And I'm like, oh, damn, okay, that's something. Did I know anything about it?
No.
No, I knew nothing. So then this is going through, again, the hell divorce that I had with my partner. He had already exited the company, but he had come like as a partner, but he had come back to like help transition out. And so I had no partner. I had a bunch of extremely upset staff because it was about 5 or 6 months where I didn't have any communication with the staff with regards to the direction of the company. I normally
Mhm.
have annual meetings, quarterly meetings, all that kind of stuff, which you need to get staff bought in.
Yeah.
Didn't do that. People are like, there's no direction, no nothing. Blah, blah, blah. I'm standing in front of my boardroom that morning. Like, I have no presentation for these people. I just had a couple lunches earlier last week about social media marketing. So I
Yeah.
then just like out of nowhere go like, oh, we're going to social media marketing. Like I literally, and people, my staff at the time, they were like, F
What
this.
the hell? Yeah.
What
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
hell are you doing? You have
Yeah.
no idea. We barely have a stable company now, and you want to go and do this. And I'm like, look, I will pay for the retraining and blah, 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 but this is the way of the future, yada, yada, yada. And they're like, this is not,
And
no
you know
one
what?
took me up.
As founders, you have to make those tough decisions, and it's not easy, but
Mm.
it's about making those decisions where you have to. That's why you're getting paid the big bucks. That's why you are who you are, right? Is to be able to identify and say, "Look, this isn't working. This is not going to work. You can't fit a circle in a square, right?" So realistically, you're going, "We got to pivot." and here's how we're going to do it. And
Yeah.
I'm going to be the one that leads the charge. Right.
It sounds much more heroic and cinematic the way that you said it. I'll tell you,
You're
it was a
welcome.
hot mess when that happened. I'll tell you, a hot mess. Like, imagine, like, I'm standing there sweating, I was going through a bunch of mental health stuff. Business was not going well, cash flow issues. And I'm like standing there, like, we're going to do this. And they're just like, and that's the thing. You got to, like, I found that, okay, you know what? Just deliver it with more confidence next time. Right. So I'm
or
delivering.
heroic in this case.
Well, I don't know. And yeah, heroic. And so I had people just like literally staff, like yelling, like, are you insane? This is so stupid. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, look,
Wow.
I'm gonna, yeah, it was tough. And then I actually offered, I'm like, I will give free training, da, 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 all this kind of stuff. No one took me up on it. So I ended up taking the course. And then with that course, they had a final project.
Right.
I ended up using, instead of making up a company, I used one of my existing clients, one of the ones that were like, oh yeah, I want you to do this. Yep. So then I finished this project. I switched the school logo and put my client's logo on the presentation. And I'm like, so I show the client, like, so what do you think? What do you think? And the client's like, this is exactly what I want. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, well, how much do you think you'd pay for this? And he's like, I don't know. Like, and he like said this much a month. And I'm like, funny you should say that. That's exactly how much I was going to. And I swear to God, that's how I started. That's how I started the department. And I didn't have anyone. I didn't have anyone dedicated to do this work. God, right. That's amazing. But I had a video producer who just, because I had announced that. So this is about, this was actually a fast forward of 3 months. So from the time I talked to the time I presented, I talked to the staff and everyone exploded, and then showed the client and signed that deal. It was about 3 months. At that time, I had lost almost 80% of staff, like 80% turnover, right? It was gnarly, dude. So anyway, I had hired this new video producer who had actually left a digital marketing company because he wanted to do more video. And I'm like, hey, I know you have like a dozen video projects, but I just signed this digital. And he knew that I wanted to get into digital. So it wasn't like a complete surprise. I'm like, I got this one deal. Can you do it? And there's like off the side of his desk, like not thinking anything about it, and but following my strategy that I had laid out, and just do this and this and this. And then it worked. And then one thing led to another. And that was that was the summer of 2019. And then COVID happens. And then we had already had about, I think, half a dozen clients at that point. So we had announced now in January of 2020 on our newsletter to our thousands of clients on our mailing list, like, Ballistic Arts, the way that you know it, is done, not happening. We are now doing lead gen digital marketing. Timing was not planned. Again, it sounds cinematic and so well thought out. It wasn't like, oh, I knew there's going to be a pandemic coming and the world's going to shut down. I'm going to do this.
I heard it like, in November.
I'm like, I'm just doing this, right? I'm just doing this. And then like, I had old clients that wouldn't pay me like for a basic website because they didn't have the money. Yet for whatever reason, when you're like, oh yeah, I'll get you leads. Yeah. They're paying me thousands of dollars a month, right? 3, 4, 5x what they would have paid me in the past to do this work. And they have been clients ever since.
So it's interesting how people, when they immediately think of, I mean, this is kind of off script. I mean, I just want to go to it because I believe like so many companies promise what you're promising, but the only reason they get the business that they do is every single company is trying to get leads easier, trying to get sales easier. And it's like a constant battle between, is it marketing? Is it social media? Is it like, you know what I mean? Like it's a constant push and pull kind of concept with sales. Like, okay, well, sales are complaining there's not enough leads coming in and blah, blah, blah. So it's interesting how, a website, it's your storefront. It's actually quite important. And they go, yeah, I can't spend $1,000 on that, but I'll spend 10 grand or 5 grand a month and have you do my social media. It's like, where do you think what happens after social media? They go to your website.
That's right. That's right.
It's your
So,
storefront.
so, but the thing is, what we do now is like we are full funnel. We manage the entire all
Yeah.
the marketing. So
Yeah.
they can't. So like we start off with the digital marketing
Well,
strategy
hence the
plan. It's a
lead, right?
blueprint.
If their website sucks, you're not going to get the lead.
Well, so I had a client. I had a client who said, "Nope, my website is off. Like I'm not like off. Do not touch it. I love my website." And he built it. Like he didn't build it, but like he directed a guy, and
Commissioned
then
it,
he won
yeah.
an award. And so therefore, him in his mind, it's the most best web. And so I'm like, all right. So then we started doing the marketing, complaining we're not getting any leads, but you can see because of the data, traffic was stopping right at the website, bouncing off. And the reason why is this is a I'll just say it's a family law firm. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, but the intake, the information, their contact page was like 4
100
pages
questions.
long. Like it was like all these fields. And I'm like, no, so they wouldn't believe us. But because of the beauty of A/B testing, we literally just, okay, well, fine. We'll send half the leads to your
To our
existing
web.
website
Yeah.
and then half the ones to a landing page that's just like, give me your information. And boom, like it just like now they end up getting so busy they had to actually have us stop doing the work because they're like, we can't handle the business.
What a problem to have.
Right. What a problem to have. So it's not bad. But to your point around like so many companies want to do this. So many yeah, but you know what? Everyone also wants a six pack and you know
That's
a
true.
hot bod and all kinds of stuff. But is it
I'm
like
still hoping.
well, hey, we all are. We all are. But it's at the end of the day, there's no, as we all know, get quick rich schemes.
No,
like it doesn't work.
It doesn't
So it's
work.
about actually putting in the work. So for us, it's like writing quality content for your content marketing strategy, for your blogs, for your videos, making a really good website, making sure that your ads actually are targeted and yada, 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 all that kind of stuff. It takes time. And we actually tell our clients, like, I'm sorry, you might need it tomorrow. It's not going to happen. And all these, people that are emailing you going, they can guarantee you 25 leads a day. Like, well, if it worked, everyone would be doing it, but it doesn't actually work. So for us, it's about training the client to recognize, okay, I need to do all of these things. And then we go and execute. It's very turnkey. It's just, here we go.
Yeah, easier. So what would you say is your biggest frustration with, all your startup pivots? Like, because I do always, at the end of the day, I always tell every single startup I meet, they're like, oh yeah, like I'm starting this thing. And I'm like, you need to put yourself in as many situations as possible where you can potentially get lucky. I always say this. I say, like, I'm not taking away anything from anyone who's had a successful startup, nothing like that. It is still incredibly hard work. Like, you still have to grind every single day, but you do have to get lucky. I always say that you have to get lucky. So how, what would you say is your biggest frustration? Like, I know you got lucky a couple times, but what was your biggest frustration while operating or pivoting?
Well,
besides the fact that you had an 80% churn.
There's so many. So, okay. Well, at the end of the day, now that I think about it, it's all up here.
Right.
It is all
the
mental noise and all that kind of stuff. That's like, oh, why is it so hard? Why this? I should be doing that. That actually makes things worse. The situation is the situation. If people are leaving, the economy is not good, you have an unhappy client, whatever it is, those things, your product doesn't launch on time, whatever it is, those things will inevitably happen. But it is what I've learned to deal with the actual situation on hand, as opposed to dealing with my mental, like, thwarted expectation of like, I should have done this, bank account this, that
problem
that
solving.
was, yeah. And I've spoken to the BC Business Council for it was like their business summit one year, and I was at the time one of the quote unquote young leaders, that was speaking on a
You're
panel.
Still young, Ted. You're still very
young at heart, baby, young at heart, and
visually as well.
And so they asked, like, well, what do you want to tell the next generation? I'm like, learn to get punched in the face. I literally said this to a group of like business owners, like the largest business owners, business people, professionals in the province. And I'm like, learn to get punched in the face. Like, your whole point of like getting lucky, it's like, you have no idea. I have no idea if I'm any good unless I put myself out there on what they call the skinny branches to see, will this make or break?
Yep.
And in as many situations as possible, and then get into, it's kind of like getting to as many fights as it were, if we're talking about that getting punched in the face, so that I can learn from it. It's something that my mother used to scoff at me all the time when I was a kid. Like, she would always say, like, you always have to, it was a metaphor in Chinese about like you have to run, you have to hit a wall. You always have to hit a
You
wall,
always have that.
right? Like,
Yeah.
why do you have to? I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, I've already told you don't do this, yet you have to go and do it to experience it and then feel the pain. And like, at the time, I was like, okay, that's kind of weird, but then I realized, okay, well, I'm okay because I always hit this wall and then I learn from it.
That's
So
right.
the frustration, there's lots of frustration, and I think it's gonna be different for everybody. But I think, if one thing that I can share is, if I wouldn't change a damn thing, right? Everything that I learned, I needed to learn. All the pain and struggle and frustration, it's to help me grow. And so having a business for me has been more about self-discovery,
Yeah.
about self-growth. And this has been an avenue, a channel for me to be able to grow and learn.
And you know what? It's interesting you're saying that, because I always look at it from a perspective of an investor. And if you look at most investors, they love investing in second time founders, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily that you're a second time founder and had a success and had a huge payout, blah, blah, blah. Of course, you'll raise more money that way. You will
Mm-hmm.
100%. But they actually like investing in the ones that are coming for another round. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're like, you know what? I got destroyed last round, but let's go. I'm in. Like, let's go, right? And to them, that's real grit. That's them understanding what went wrong maybe last time and learned from
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of newer startups, what they end up doing is they kind of go into it with the mentality of, I got this. Like, I'm gonna make this happen. And you have to, because you're crazy enough to do this,
Yeah.
right? But I think the best way you said it was, you just got to learn to take punches in the face, because it's nonstop.
Yeah, it is nonstop. I remember watching.
Like,
I
you
remember
might
watching
land
this.
one punch once in a blue moon, but like, you're getting, it's like this.
Yeah,
Just
it's like all. I remember like, when especially when I first started, it was like you'd get punched in the face maybe once a month, and then you'd have a high. You'd be like, oh, something
well,
great
that's when
went
you
well.
landed a punch.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
sometimes you land a punch, but to your point, it's like they'd be like, okay, a week that was good, landed a punch, and then bad week because I got punched in the face. But it was always, and then it got to the point, the velocity of the business got to the point where, like you said, it was like this, right?
Yeah.
It was like, I got punched in the face and I landed a punch. Like, so I remember, like, I just signed the company's largest contract in the history of the business the same day or the same week that my business partner of 16 years told me he was leaving.
Wow.
Right. It was just like,
It's a 1-2
what,
punch. That's a 1-2
right? Like,
punch.
what
Yeah.
the heck? What? And so those things happen a lot. And
Yeah.
I've learned to deal with the highs and the lows, both with, I don't know, calm, humility, acceptance,
Yeah.
just to be like, hey, I don't need to be super high about this because I landed a great contract, landed a, sexy deal. I don't have to be super low about it because, we're down 50 grand this month or something like that. You just learn, you just deal.
Yeah. And you kind of maintain that emotional roller
Mm-hmm.
coaster, and you kind of make it more level. I do always say, like, for startups, they need to know when to celebrate the highs, which is not like go and party and like drink your face off. That's not the point. The whole
Mm-hmm.
point of it is that you learn to, because we as founders, we as startups, entrepreneurs, whatever you want to call us, what ends up happening is we're very hard on ourselves, right? Like, we're genetically like,
Oh
we
yeah.
have to do better.
Oh
We
yeah.
have to be stronger. We have to, right? So we put a lot of pressure on ourselves mentally and physically. And what ends up happening is, when you do win, we go, that wasn't a big enough of a win, right? And you kind of go, but that's not good enough. I need more. I need more. I need more. Whereas I always tell people, I'm like, without those wins, you're going to get burnt out so fast.
Mm-hmm.
because you're not going to celebrate in your mind that, hey, I actually got something here. Like that's a
Mm-hmm.
big
Mm-hmm.
win. That's something that, 60% of startups don't do. Like launching your product is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But like to a startup, it's like that was expected. And it's
Mm.
like you guys have to realize that you just launched a product. 60% of startups do not launch,
Wow.
right? You are now part of the 40%. Celebrate that. Not
Well,
not again, you don't have to go and party. You don't have to like, be like, "Oh, I'm done. That's it."
yeah,
But like
yeah,
you
yeah.
got to be able to with humility, like you said, just say, "Nice. Good job, team. Like well done. But we got another thing to go."
And
Right?
I think that it's absolutely a true point, and it was something that I also was guilty of, where I didn't celebrate enough, and everything was not good enough.
Yeah.
I have learned in the past few years to be a bit, have I practice gratitude every day.
Mhm.
I have a gratitude journal and all that kind of stuff. But I
The 5
also,
minute the 5-minute
I
journal.
have a book. I just write, like, so it started with, again,
What's it called
mental,
though?
right?
What's it called?
Hey,
Is it called the
it's
5-minute journal?
no, it is called Ted writing in a notebook things that
Okay.
he wants to, like, I
Literally your
literally
own.
just
Okay, got it.
I literally, so how it happened was, I was freaking out at a friend, like one friend that I would call all the time, like when business, he was an investment banker, and I'd call him and be like, fucking life sucks,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. You
and
always
so
have that friend.
after like the third or fourth time, he's like, Ted, and this was like 8 years ago, he was like, what do you, just stop, can you give me 10 things you're grateful for? And I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
what are you talking about? The house is burning. Ah! He's like, just 10 things. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. Like, I guess I have hair, like, and like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
grateful I
yeah.
have hair. And like, but he's
Yeah.
like, okay. And then next, and then like after, like, so then I started getting more serious. Well, I'm glad that I got my health, parents are alive.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have
yeah.
love of my life. I'm married,
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff. And he's like, how do you feel? I'm like, oh, I feel a lot better. And so, and I was one of those people, like, hated waking up, like, just, you sleep nothing and then you wake up and you feel garbage. And so what I
Oh,
do
yeah.
now is, when I wake up, when I feel like that, I just, before I get out of bed, I just go, okay, what am I grateful for? And I just go through as many things I can be grateful for until my mood changes. And then I get up. And then, so now, like, so I meditate, I have this gratitude journal, and then I'll write like usually 5 to 10 things, and I'll write it down. I'll share it with a couple friends. And it's just a good way to start the day. I kind
And
of
to
lost
be
track of what we were
honest with
talking about.
you, you will make significantly better. I think we're just on the topic of mental,
Oh, okay. All right. Good.
um, which is fine. Like that's entrepreneurship. Is you have to learn to manage yourself, because look, if you wake up every day and you go, my god, this is a struggle, holy crap, like I'm
Mm,
struggling every single day,
mm-hmm,
guess what's going to happen to your mental mood? What's going to happen when you're making decisions? You're going to be a little more hasty. You're going to
mm-hmm,
make short-term decisions instead of long-term decisions. You're going to make bad deals. There's so many
mm,
things that you're going to do wrong when you're in that mental state of, I I'm in a very bad position and I got to come out, versus just doing, like, to your point, gratitude is a great one. I love doing gratitude. But my biggest thing is I take about a minute of big deep breaths,
mm.
and
Yeah, that
it's
works too.
insane what
Oh
it
yeah.
does. And it's like you tell that to, like, I heard it once and I was just like, that's the stupidest thing I heard in the world. Like, what do you mean? Like, I breathe all the time, but like, no, 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 deep breaths.
hmm
And it just, like, when I get really upset, like when something happens and something is just like, oh my God, the world is against me, whatever the
hmm
feeling is, I literally just go and just sit down and I take like a minute of solid deep breaths, inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. And like after that minute, I'm just laying there. I'm just like, the hell was I mad about?
It's true, and it's because you need the. So when I read this as well, is that, like, when you're stressed, your breathing cycle shortens. So
That's
having
right.
a deep breath really works. I also do some with my meditation. Sometimes I'll do box breathing, box
Box
work. It's
breathing.
like,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
it's like
I've heard of
I
it.
think it's like 5 seconds
Yeah,
inhale, 5 seconds hold, five
yeah.
seconds exhale, and then
That's right.
5 seconds hold, and then the same thing. You do it over and over again, and it's usually like 5 seconds, then you go to 7, you go to 8, and you go to 10, and then you kind of, and then, I don't know, like you said, it works. And I think it's about staying present and all that kind of stuff. And back to your point about, like, rewarding, treating yourself a little bit. Like, no one tells you, yeah, you don't have to go drink your face off or
No,
go now buy a Maserati or something like that. But
I wish.
being able to treat yourself a little bit,
Yeah.
right? Is a good thing. And I think it one frames my mental state in a better place, that then I can be actually a better leader if I'm
That's right.
able to show gratitude and achievement. Because I found that by not doing that, because I was my own worst critic, I thought I was actually being gracious with people, but in fact I wasn't with the
No.
staff, because because now they have to do a lot of big things for me to be like, good job. But I would compliment them on the big things, but the
Yeah.
little things I had failed to do, not recognizing that until I learned self-compassion. And then once I learned
Yeah.
that, I was able to then go, oh, well, hey, good job, buddy. Like this and that, and then celebrate with the team. And there's more to do. And it's changed.
Yeah. And it does come down to the fact that, again, we're entrepreneurs. We're tough on ourselves, thus we're tough on others, right? And we always push our team to be that much better. But it does not hurt you to understand why those people are there, and they're there for you,
Mm,
right? They're
mhm,
not there
mhm.
for the business. Let's be realistic here, right? They're there because they loved your vision. They are there because they love what your product is going to bring to the world. You're not GE. You're not
Not
Apple,
G.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not that company where they can go and just chill, right? You're that company that they're there to try to make a difference. That's the only reason most people start working at startups. But they're not you. So you can't sit there and kind of expect like, yeah, you don't need a compliment here. You did right,
Yeah.
right? Like let's go for the big stuff, right? It's really just like, hey, awesome job. Maybe do this next time. That might make it better. But just remember, this is where we want to be,
Yeah.
right?
I think it's imperative to recognize that, and your point about, hey, they're here for you.
Yeah,
It took me a long time to recognize that. It really
right.
did. I was like, oh, they're just here for a job. And when we started doing exit
They're
interviews a few
really
years
not.
ago, yeah,
They'll
like I
take
had
a
a
pay cut.
guy,
They'll take a
I
pay
had
cut to be there with you.
I had a guy who worked for us for like 7 or 8 years, and when he left, I'm like, wow, you've been here for a long time, like an agency life, like
Yeah,
that's a lifetime. And
that's a lifetime.
and he was like, because I believed, at the time it was me and my partner. He was like, well, because
Right.
I believed in you guys, right? It was like,
Yeah.
what, like, really? And I remember I had like all these 80% turnover during the tough
Yep.
16 months in 2018, 2019. I had a couple people stay. Those are my long-term guys that had been with me 8, 9, 10 years kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then when they moved on, again, it was like, hey, you saw all of your colleagues leave, yet you chose to stay. Why? And it was like, I wanted to see how the story turned out.
Yeah.
Like literally, one of the guys said, like, I just wanted to see how it was going to turn out, because I believed it
Yeah.
was going to work out. And you're just like, I felt so humbled by it, right? Like
Yeah.
it just, and they're not going to tell you, but it's
No.
very much a thing. And I think we as entrepreneurs and owners need to recognize that, and be responsible for it. I
That's right.
remember when this is probably 15 years ago, I was talking to a client of mine who he grew at the same time I did, but he worked at a credit union. And
Right.
then he was my client, but he was a department of one, and we were like, two people at the time. And then we kind of grew together. So I think
Right.
at the time I had like 10 people, and he had 10 people in his department. And I was going for lunch with him. He had wickedly dark humor. I'm like,
Yeah.
do you say this stuff to like your
Out
staff? He's like,
loud.
hell no, I absolutely don't. I'm like,
Oh,
oh, he's like, yeah, no. I'm like, you don't? I'm like, he's like, no, because like their place of work is not my home. Like, I
yeah.
can't do.
Yeah.
And freaking, I didn't even clue in, because like, this is my business, my home. I can do whatever. I kind of, and he's
Yeah.
like, no, you can't do that. Like you as the owner, he's like, you probably have it more than me. Like, they look at every move that you make, Ted.
That's right.
And
You're
so
like a
like
parent, right? It's like
you're
a
like a
kid and a
parent.
parent.
And I did not recognize that until I was probably, yeah, heck, I was probably like 8 years into the business by then. It was
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
long time, right? To really recognize that. But I think I'm not Elon Musk. I'm not somebody that's going to grow super fast into the moon. I'm just, like I said, it's a bit of a lifestyle business, an agency. We got 20 some odd people in the firm, and you just learn. And it's a great vehicle for me to continue, like I said, self-discovery.
So how did you like I'm with you. I mean the work and home. I'm very unapologetically myself at work. Like I don't really care because my biggest thing is I like to enjoy work as much as I possibly can. So like
Mhm,
if you're not our culture, it's all good. Like
mhm, mhm, mhm,
bye. But like, you know, I I try not to hide things. Like I'm very much transparent with it. Like here's where we're at. Here's where we're gonna be.
mhm, mhm,
But one of the biggest challenges I think most startups have, including myself, I had the same problem, three or four times now, is partners. Um,
mm,
how do you manage partners? Because it is a marriage, right? And there's
mhm,
always the
mhm,
moment where like the two separate because they're
mhm,
growing at different rates.
mhm,
One rises to the occasion, one may not, and kind of feels like they're owed something when and then the other one is like, how are you owed? Like, I'm growing with the company, you're just stagnant. There's
mm,
always this battle and again shift, and I always tell people like, be careful who you're partnering up with, understand each other's roles, and really make sure that's communication is utterly clear at all times. What are your, because you went through a breakup, and
mm,
I call it a breakup, but
mm.
you went through a breakup with a partner. What would you suggest people when they're taking an approach of a partnership, how to approach it and how to do it properly?
Well,
Tough
I don't.
question, I know.
It is a tough question because it's kind of like, I'm a divorcee, as it were, to be like, oh, tell me what's the best thing about marriage, and it'd be
Yeah,
like,
if you want to look at it that
well,
way, I've had
right,
multiple divorces.
right. It's kind of like, oh, I don't. So I mean,
don't do
I'll
don't
tell
be
you,
fr- don't partner up with a friend. That's, I always say that one,
yeah, yeah.
because
Well,
it's
so okay,
hard to blur the line.
I'll tell you kind of what I did and what were best practices for us, that, and you got to think, like, it was 16 years that we were together, and so we definitely had things that worked and things that didn't. So why we decided to pair up, you're right, he was not a friend. He was somebody that I met on an indie film shoot we were doing,
Wow, cool.
and we got connected. And what I really enjoyed about working with him was he saw my blind spots and I saw his blind spots. So, like,
Yeah,
for instance, I'd
compliment.
go in for a close up shot, he
Yeah,
wanted the wide shot, and if I wanted black, he wanted white. So we always had that, and it was always in service of the product, the end product, the client. And so when we first started, every gripe that we had, and God, we had lots of gripes even at the very beginning, it was all, but we liked it because it was in service of betterment of
yeah.
the product and all that kind of stuff.
And that's, I would, tip number one is compliment each other. Make sure
Yeah.
that your weaknesses are his strengths or his or her strengths, and vice versa. I'm with you on that one
So
100%.
that was key. We also tried to do something like, um, we'd have regular meeting rhythms. We tried to do, um, I guess, date nights, but they weren't date nights. They were just excursions. We'd go out
Yep.
and go to. I did not enjoy that because I don't think at the end of the day, I don't think I actually liked him as a person, like, as like, you know what I mean? Like, I
No, I'm with you.
respected
I'm with
him.
you. Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
respected him, but like, I wouldn't want to
Coworkers,
hang out with him.
100%. Yeah,
Like, would I want to hang out with him? I never wanted to hang out with him. So it was
that's
kind of
fair.
this forced, like, ugh, I didn't really like that.
Yeah,
Um, but that said, so we broke up, and the me and my wife is actually my business partner now, which I
right.
think for a lot of people are like, what the hell? I found that for those that are more westernized, I grew up here, and most of my
Yeah,
friends are white and all that kind of stuff, and English speaking, and so those, even one of my business coaches at the time was like, are you insane? Like, why
yeah.
would you
That's
do this?
dangerous territory.
That's dangerous territory. But then those from the old country, like my old Hapkido master, my like
They're all
my
like, that makes
parents, they're
sense.
they're like, this is fantastic. Like, why wouldn't you do this? Right. And so, and for me and my wife, and this is the crazy thing, is that yes, me and her complement each other. But for the first 16 years, she was not a business partner. She was the bookkeeper. She did the books. She did initially. Started doing web programming, but then we had the baby, and then she like forgot how, like, the programming language kind of evolved quicker than by the
Yeah,
time
yeah,
she came
yeah.
back, she was like, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, 6
And
months,
so
you're off the thing for
you're
like even
off
a
the
year,
keyboard
you're
exactly.
done.
You're
Yeah.
done, right? And so she's like, I'm not gonna learn this again. But that was like 15, yeah, almost 15 years ago now. So, but because I was going through such a struggle with the business, she elected to kind of hop in and help. And what I loved about it is prior to that, wasn't there was an unwritten rule in the house to not talk about business. All the stresses
Smart.
and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
We never talked about it.
You got to draw that
The
line.
the problem was she didn't understand what the hell was going on. Like well, it's just money. Like, no, it's not,
Yeah.
not just right. And so now it's not like we obsess and talk about it and all that kind of stuff. It's just like, hey, did you have that conversation with so and so? Did you deliver that? Like, it's just a little thing here and there, or something funny that happened at work today, and then we can share about it. Oh, that was such a funny joke.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this nice thing. We're in a pretty, like you said, like, be lucky, be in enough places to be lucky that we are in a really good spot business wise right now. Things are going pretty well for the most part. And so
I'm expecting your next pivot in the next 6 months, the 6 years.
Hey, no, don't worry. Like, we are already pivoting right now. Like, we're pivoting a lot of things right now. Right. So we're always looking to evolve and change and all that kind of stuff. But, I have a great marriage, and I wish everyone had my marriage. It's fantastic. We have a great relationship, and we're typically on the same page with all the big stuff. And so it's very, 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 very rare that we disagree on things. And we have defined roles. I'm not stepping on her toes. She's not stepping on my toes. We have a director of operations that does stuff, and like, everyone has their role.
Right.
And I have
define the roles.
I've defined the roles and created enough systems now that I don't come across as micromanaging, because before didn't have systems, didn't have style of communication with all my staff. And they're always like, why is Ted micromanaging me? And it's like, well, you said you're going to deliver something on Tuesday. You didn't deliver it on Tuesday. I'm asking you for it.
Don't you love when they call that micromanaging? I'm like, no, I'm just managing. Micromanaging is me standing over your head and be like, why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? Why'd you do that?
Exactly. I'm not doing that. Right. And so, but then when I had a friend who came in as a consultant for a bit during COVID. He helped set up a bunch of systems and this and that. And it worked really, really well. And now it's like, I've kind of done all my shit today. It's already 12 o'clock. I'm gonna take the day. Cause like, I'm not going to be like, yo, Mark, did you do this? And hey, Tiffany, did you do? It's like, hey, you delivered. You're good. We're good.
Yeah. And that comes over years of like your business being around for, like, I would say past the 2-3 mark, 4 mark, you're starting to implement systems, and then you're starting to see those systems work, which results you kind of being like, yeah, I can chill now. I don't have to.
I think so. When you were talking about that, actually, because I'm kind of throwing back to the frustration thing, I have recognized that managing a team is probably one of the biggest challenges a lot of entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs that were technicians to start the business, have a big struggle on. And I know lots of successful people. This is not just entrepreneurs in corporate life too, who super talented, managed once, never going to manage, going to hate managing people. I hate people. But that's a ceiling, right? That's a ceiling in terms of my growth. And so I've been, I even now, people are weird, right? And so people are funny. And so we had someone start, like, say they love the role and worked for us for 4 days and quit. And you're like, what? Like, and like, we did all the vetting and all that kind of stuff. And so, like, these things will still happen,
of course.
And at the end of the day, I choose not to give up.
Yep. That's the grit, right? It's the key thing. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Ted, you're amazing. I love having a conversation with you.
It was great. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. I think at the end of the day, a lot of startups can walk away with we talked a lot. We talked a lot about a lot of stuff. And I always say, like, my podcast is all about startups just understanding what they're about to get themselves into. And in my opinion, understanding helps you be proactive. Right. And that's what the whole podcast is about. So I really appreciate you giving your insight and kind of giving your experiences on that.
Well, I appreciate you having this podcast. I think, back in the day when I was first starting, didn't have resources like this. Didn't get an opportunity to hear from folks like us, because, the channels were TV, CNN or BNN or CNBC, and that's it. And so having this opportunity, I think, is great. And I'm grateful to have the opportunity to share.
Yeah. Thank you. And to that point, like, even now, like the resources are how to sell better at startup or how to market better. Or it's all like so oriented around like you actually being successful. And it's like, yeah, but like, where do I start?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
what am I about to get myself into? That's the key
Mhm.
question here.
Mhm,
So,
mhm, mhm,
so
mhm.
that's what we do. And that's what we try for our Founders Corner. So thank you, Ted. I really appreciate your time being here. You're an amazing person to talk to, and just being here. And I know the audience is going to take away a lot from you.
That's great. Hey, thank you very much for the time. I hope everyone had a good time listening, as much fun as you and I had on the call.
Always, always. To everybody else at home, thank you for listening in. I'm sure you're sitting there going, "Thank you, Ted. That was huge." Sep, I don't think you did anything there. It's probably true. So, but if you're listening, feel free to share this with anybody that you think will take value from this. Otherwise, like and subscribe. We pump these out at least once a week, so we appreciate your support. Until next time, Corridor out.
Love it. See you guys.